Hello there! Today I'm gonna be talking about the latest books that I've read in these past few months. So there are 5 of them, so I'm gonna go through them. I'm gonna give them a ranking out of 5 stars, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit of the summary of them, and then I'm gonna go through the positive and then negative things that I find that they have. So keep on watching if you're curious about them. So they are bestsellers, I think the majority of them. I mostly read them because I saw they had many reviews, like 10,000. Yeah, I'm here to give you my most truthful critic. The first one that I'm gonna show you is this one. So this is Conversations on Love by Natasha Lan. So this is mostly a dissertation about love. So she has different interviews with different women. They are just women. They can be writers too, journalists, actresses and many different professions. So this is not a romance book. This is a dissertation, more like a kind of psychological book, but it doesn't have like studies in it. So it's mostly informal interviews as a way of conversations. So the book is divided into 3 main parts. The first one being how to find love, then how to sustain love, and the last one, how do we survive losing love. So what I find positive about this book is that it is not a very detailed book, not a scientific book. By having these 3 parts, you can totally feel reflected on either one of them. That was my case, at least. So the writer also adds some personal experiences of her. So this makes the book a little bit more catching, that you want to keep on reading. And it's also quite interesting, like the findings, for a book to not be a romance book. I think it's a very interesting book. But the downside is that since there are many different interviews, you kind of get a bit bored of them, or at least I was. So that is like the only negative part, but it took me a bit some time to read it. So I read it during summer and it took me a while to get used to reading it. But at the end, the findings are quite good. So I would give this book 4 out of 5 stars. So the next one is this Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte. This is more like a, let's say, business book for how to be organized in your daily life, in your personal life, and also in your work life. So to be organized overall. So it is about organization, but in the digital work. Well, I'm not gonna tell you the main takeaway, but yeah, it's not about making to-do list by hand and so on. So it's everything in the digital workplace. So if you are a fan of this organizational stuff, as I am, at some parts might feel a little too simple, or because you might already know about them, but I think that's the main goal of the book, that everyone can read it. Not everything can be useful for you, but that you at least feel that there is a takeaway for you. For me, it was quite useful because indeed I am using the main takeaway of how to be organized. I am using it, I would say, not in all of my pillars of life, but I'm using it for my, so at work and also in my personal life. So I could give this book 4 stars out of 5. The next one is one of the bestsellers of I would say the last year. It is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I think the majority of you already know about it, and I was fascinated by this book, really. So if you read the summary, I wasn't expecting that I was gonna like that much this book, because it's about the life of Evelyn Hugo, and she was born around the 1930s or 50s, something like that. It's based in the past. It's about the true life of Evelyn Hugo. That's what the summary says. So I was like, I won't feel reflected on anything in this book, but I would say don't judge the book by its cover, because this is the case. So I was completely amazed by the way the writer writes. I would recommend it 100%, and I would love to read another one of the books from this author, and I completely loved it. So I was intrigued by how things were gonna turn, and I couldn't stop reading it. It is a very big book, but I read it in a very short period of time. So I would definitely give this book 5 out of 5 stars. You should read it because it is a bestseller. The next one is a novel. It is about running. So it's this book. It's Once a Runner by John Parker. I'm a runner. I love running. I'm preparing right now a half marathon. My boyfriend gave me this book for Christmas, and this is my first book about running. So it was interesting to read about this topic, but I truly didn't like at all how the writer writes. He writes in this kind of jargon from America, and I couldn't really understand all of the meaning. I needed to translate the words because I didn't know the words, all of them. So it was a bit of a mess. I didn't find anything that catches my attention in this book. There is no like a story to follow on reading. Those are all negative things. But I would tell you one positive thing, that is that in some chapters I found myself quite reflected, because he was writing about the struggle during running, and I found myself very reflected, like the morning runs, like the discipline and so on, and things that even if you talk about them with your boyfriend or your friends, only runners can feel the same way, you know? So I found this connection, but I would only give this book 1 star because I was not at all passionate about reading it. So maybe I need to find another book about running. You can recommend me some of them, because this one was not the best one. And the last one is this beautiful book. So I find this cover, it is very aesthetic. So it is Cleopatra and Frankestein by Hugo. This one is like a trend book, I think, right now, and I read it in a very short period of time because it is very easy to read and very easy to follow and to keep on reading. So the book is divided by chapters, and each chapter is like a month, and each chapter is like a different story and like character, I would say. The characters also come up in the next chapters, but the main story is the love story about 2 individuals, so about Cleo and Frank. So they are living in New York and they spontaneously get married. That is also in the summary, and it's about their love story and everything that is around. Also the story from their friends, from their family as well, and so on. I would start with 2 negative things. First of all, I feel like there is no specific track of the story, because a different chapter is like a different story and there is no main track. But I mean, that is also good, so it's not like a completely negative point. But another negative point is that there are many sub-stories related to drugs and like hard topics that I wasn't reflected at all. So it is like the brutal side of New York, I would say. Positive things, because it is a recommended book. It is very easy to read. You can understand it perfectly. I would bring this book to the beach, to vacation. It's perfect for it. And all in all, like the story behind it, like the moral behind it, is very clear. Overall, you can see how people evolve through life and through the events of life. So I would give this book, let's say, a 4.5 stars, because not my favorite one from these 5. My favorite one goes to Evelyn Hugo. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you like this video, and leave me in the comments if you have any book recommendations or comments. Thank you. Ciao ciao.